All right, hello once again. Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I'm going over the PowerPoint presentations for Murox ASP.NET 4.6 with C# 2015 6th edition. And I'm just about finished with Chapter 10, which is on how to work with Bootstrap and ASP.NET. We are up to the Bootstrap themes that are on page 368. The author says, as you know, you can override the styles that Bootstrap provides with your own custom styles. In many cases, that's all you'll need to do to make pages look the way you want to. But you can also override the Bootstrap styles with a number of different themes, which provide alternate styles for your web page. Now, one of the biggest ways to do this is to go out to Bootswatch .com. And to my knowledge, everything that's out here is free. So free themes for Bootstrap. All right. And these are different themes. So you can see what they look like. Most of them, they're colored differently, etc. But you can see the different things that are in there. There's a couple more here. Okay. Boom. You can still, I don't know. These are books, I believe. So, but you get the idea. Now, if I go out here and I also, go out and type in here, for example, free Bootstrap themes. Not only will I get the Bootswatch, which you already saw, but notice there's startbootstrap.com, free themes and templates, and there are going to be other ones as well. All right. Plus, there are Bootstrap themes that you can pay for, or you can go in and create your own Bootstrap themes and use those. When you go in and you use NuGet, so you may or may not remember this, but if I come through here, right mouse click, choose Manage NuGet Packages, and I already have it, so I'm not going to re-add this. But if I come through here, all right, and geez, I don't remember even what it was called. I guess it was this, the ASP.NET Manager Bootstrap. It's already installed. That's why it's saying, do you want to uninstall it? But what the author is saying there is when we do that, what we get set up for us by default are the bootstrap.js, bootstrap.min.js, etc. So we get a bunch of files, and those files have the Bootstrap theme style sheet. It downloads automatically. It gives us things like gradients that give a 3D effect to alerts and buttons. All right, if we use this, we have to link to it. We already did. If we use custom themes, we shouldn't use this. So in other words, if we download one of these, for example, it's going to have its own bootstrap.min.css, etc. And that's the one that we'd want to use. Now, the Bootstrap theme style sheet doesn't take the place of the main style sheet. They mention on the middle of, or toward the bottom, page 368, it augments it. So in other words, you must code its link tag after the link tag for the main style sheet. All right, so if you do want to actually change your theme, and that's discussed in here, come on. Why aren't you showing me this? There we go. So the author says if you do want to add your own Bootstrap theme style sheet, you need that. We already have that. But you notice underneath the Bootstrap min, you'd have your own. And it must be in this order because what's going to be in here in the theme one you get will override what's in the main one. All right. I already showed you the Bootswatch website and two of the themes, as they mentioned, that are in there. All right, the last 4 pages in here are called How to Control the Rendered HTML. Now, the problem is if I go through this, it's probably not going to make much sense to you. Okay? So what I want to do is, rather than going through that, I want to kind of go through what they have in the textbook as far as the bottom line is this. If you're going to combine and use Bootstrap, in ASP.NET, you lose some control over how your controls are going to render in the browser. All right, so the author says, throughout this chapter, you've learned to use Bootstrap with ASP.NET controls. That includes how to make adjustments when a control isn't rendered to the HTML that Bootstrap needs. In some cases, it can be difficult to make adjustments so that you correctly render the correct HTML. So the author says there's two ways that you can help do this. They mention about a third of the way down on page 372, in some cases it may be easier to control the rendered HTML by coding the HTML directly rather than using the run at equals server. So they show that with a badge, and that's what they're getting to in this example. Where is that with a badge? There's a badge example in here someplace. There. So you can get some control over it that way. Now, to work with an HTML element on the server, remember, you need to add the class or the run at equals server attribute. Okay? Now, there has been a directive that's been added to the code behind file in the master page that's a using system.web.ui.html controls. Let's see if indeed that is in there. So we go to here, we go to our site.master, and we look, and it's what they're saying is somewhere in here. In the code behind file, this one right here. This using statement is designed to make it easier to refer to HTML controls in here. We're getting pretty heavy into this stuff. All right, well, what if that you don't want to do that? This is just too hard. And you want to make something look a certain way without having to go through all this work. Well, another way to render an HTML control, and they show this with the breadcrumbs example. All right. And that's here. When you use the ASP.NET literal control, the content is rendered to the browser just as it is. So you can add your own HTML to render it directly the way you want it to look. All right. You can also use a repeater control to generate a series of these components. So for instance, if you were going to do something where you needed to maybe make a list of images or something like that, you might want to do that. And they show this. These are both shown on page 375. All right. Now, that wasn't the greatest of explanations, but you at least have had an initial exposure to it. There's only so much that we can do in the amount of time that we have. So in here, we talked about the Bootstrap CSS classes and components. We talked about how to use a Bootstrap theme style sheet. We talked about how to use the Bootstrap CSS classes for buttons, checkboxes, radio buttons, images, lists, HTML tables, and text. We talked about the contextual classes, the secondary or the primary, the default, etc., success. We mentioned that in Bootstrap 4, the glyphicons have been gone. I showed you, not maybe that well, but I showed you how to bring in the font awesome stuff. We talked a little bit about badges, button groups, button drop-downs, list groups, alerts, breadcrumbs, thumbnails, navs, and nav bars. We talked about how to use a Bootstrap theme style sheet that differs from the Boot Swatch. And finally, we just ended with talking about how to work with an HTML element on the server. Now, Next, I'm going to go and bring up Chapter 11, which is not a fun chapter. It's on how to work with friendly URLs and routing. I definitely do not want to save these changes I've made to Chapter 10, so no. So we're going to go into that in just a couple.